So today what we're going to be doing is removing the clutch out of a 1972 Honda CB750. The clutch is located right here on the right side of the bike.
Now what we're going to do to start is remove our clutch cover, which is held on by these 3 screws. Now once we have this plate off, this is going to give us access to our clutch cable. Alright, so to remove this, we're going to have to remove this cable here. So we're going to start by removing that spring right there, and then loosening this nut that holds this arm on. So now that we've got that nut off, we're going to go ahead and loosen this, which is going to allow this assembly to slide out. And then we're going to take this and slide the barrel through the groove to remove that. Now our cable will slide right out and we can take this plate off. So the next step is to remove all these bolts that are holding this cover plate on. So now that we've got those out, this should just pull off. Revealing our clutch assembly. Now that that's out of the way, we're going to go ahead and remove these 4 bolts that are holding the plate that's holding the spring in the clutch. Now there's going to be a little bit of tension behind it because of these springs. So you're going to want to hold it while you remove these bolts. Till all the tension's off, and then you can go ahead and take them all the way out. So we'll go ahead and remove this, and then each of these springs will come out. Should be 4 of them. Now that we're ready to take this nut off, you'll notice around here there's this washer with these tangs on it. What we need to do is find the tang that's in this groove and bend it out, because this is sort of a locking feature of this washer that's going to prevent that nut from moving. So we'll get that out of the way. Looks like that's the only one. And now, what we're going to do is, with something, we're going to hold this part of the clutch that rotates from rotating while we back this nut off. Now you can buy a special tool to do this, but we're just going to take our chances and try and get this pair of pliers in between here to prevent that from rotating. Now we'll take this and loosen our nut. So this nut will come off, as well as this lock washer. Now that our nut is off, we'll just go ahead and pull the clutch assembly out. And this is what your clutch looks like. Alright, so we've got our clutch ready to go back in the bike. You're gonna notice here we've got all these keyways. These have to be in fairly straight of a line because these are actually gonna go into the slots here. If they're not perfect, it doesn't matter because you can work with it. But we'll take this and get the first one lined up. Wiggle it a little if you have to. Then you gotta get this center part engaged, so you might have to twist it. And then you'll just have these last couple. You can use a screwdriver to help you align them with the groove. And there we go. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall our washer. Our lock washer, you'll notice we've got this part right here, which is going to line up with the bigger part of our clutch. And then our nut. Now you'll see this chamfered edge here. That part is going to go facing the bike. Go ahead and snug that up. And we'll grab our torque wrench and torque it. So we've got our torque wrench set up. The torque according to our manual is 32 to 36 foot-pounds. We're gonna start at our lowest setting and torque it down to that and see if our lock washer lines up. If not, we'll go to a higher torque and see then. So we'll go ahead and get that lined up there. Torque wrench. So we've got our nut torqued to the lowest setting, 32 foot-pounds, and it looks like actually this tab right here should line up fairly perfectly. So we'll go ahead and try and bend that down. Perfect, that goes right in. So we'll just grab it with our pliers to get it in the last little bit. So now it's nice and flush with the outside. So that's installed. We'll go ahead and each of these posts will have a spring on it. Now we will take this plate and the 4 bolts. Go ahead and put them in. Get this lined up so the bolts are going through our springs. We'll go ahead and get each one started. Now we're gonna run these down. Alternating which bolt we tighten. Get these not too tight, but just kind of snugged up. Then we'll grab our torque wrench. Now we've got our torque wrench. These bolts are going to be 6 to 7 foot-pounds each. So we're going to start in a star pattern. So we're going to start with this bolt, then this one, this one, this one, and then we'll go back and check them all again. So this really isn't going to take much torque at all. That's it. So now that we've torqued all four, we'll go back through them and just make sure they're still So our internal components to the clutch are all back together. We're going to go ahead and reinstall our outer cover here. So this will just slide on. It's got a little alignment notch right there. And we'll go ahead and install all our bolts. We'll go ahead and reinstall this here. This little dust boot will go over that. We'll leave this kind of loose because we're going to have to come back to adjust our clutch. We'll just have to hook up this little spring. Now we can move on to the adjustment. If you see there's a little flathead screw inside this nut right here, we're going to take this and turn it in until we feel a slight resistance. So right there. And now we're going to take it back a quarter of a turn. So now while we hold this, we'll go ahead and tighten down this lock nut. And our clutch is adjusted. So the last step, now that we've got our clutch adjusted, is to put the cover back on. And it's just these 3 screws. Get it lined up. And then we'll just tighten them down.
So there we have it. That's replacing a clutch on a 1972 Honda CB750.